Iate Steve Pelletier Yenishe Maidesh Gizni initially Billigana Bashashin Kim the Chini Dashache Billigana Nationale. Welcome back to Resball, where this time Andy and I are going to briefly give you some summer league takeaways, but mostly this time we are going to talk about Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren's contracts will make or break this Pistons iteration, this Pistons team. Really, we're going to talk about a bunch of things when it comes to Ivey and Duren's contracts, like why they haven't been extended, should they be extended, what the number is going to be, and also break down their game. So let's get started right about now. Andy, welcome back. Andy, let everybody know where they can find you online before we get started.
You can find me on Twitter at D_D_Pistons_fan.
So before we go dive into all that, the Pistons did sign a new player, Colby Jones, who comes to us from the Wizards the season before, or this past season, I should say. Initially drafted by the Sacramento Kings, 34th overall, I believe, in 2022 or 2023. Let's look at what Colby Jones has done thus far in the NBA. Listed at 6'6", 205 pounds, shooting guard, can play some point guard, can play some small forward. Let me see. Drafted in 2023. Yeah, 2023, 34th overall. Again, initially by the Kings. Really hasn't done a whole lot. The Kings didn't play him too much. He only played 6.4 minutes for them as a rookie, and then played 24 games with the Kings at 5.4 minutes. So they traded him in a package over to the Wizards, where he did get some time with the Wiz this last season, 25.7 minutes per game, 15 games with the Wizards, 8.7 points per game in those 15 games, 4.3 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 1.3 steals, 0.4 blocks per game, 1.1 turnover per game. Shooting splits in these 15 games, 56.3% from 2-point range, 30.8% from 3-point range, and then 65.7% from the free throw line. All of that translates to 55.3% true shooting. I mean, Colby's a work in progress. If anybody remembers his draft profile coming out of Xavier, it was like, oh, probably is more of a wing, but the money is in him being a tall point guard. Did run the show at times there at Xavier, wasn't a shooter his first 2 years in college, and then that last year ended up being able to shoot a lot better. First 2 seasons at Xavier, 33.3% as a freshman, 29.2% as a sophomore, and then 37.8% as a junior at Xavier. So definitely put in the time there. Very good on defense too. This is somebody that, number one, should profile as a good defender who will stick with guys. He's mainly an attacker who likes having the ball in his hands, can also slash and do things off ball. My thought with this is another Fred Vinson project for sure, because he has all the tools of like ball handling, defense, size, positional versatility. But it really comes down to the shooting of like, if this guy can shoot, then you know who he profiles a lot like, and a lot of people compared him to coming out of the draft is Nickeil Alexander-Walker. So who knows? We don't know Colby Jones, long shot always when you bring in a dude on another two-way contract, but another guy that profiles very, very, very well and something the team could use. Andy, you have any Colby Jones thoughts?
I think it's just a good prototype player as far as these are the guys you should be taking chances on when they have a good skill set. And then it's one thing like maybe develop the shooting. I mean, I think it's probably a big step up from like the past when we had like a Buddy Boeheim on a two-way. I think we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, unless Trajan is like the godfather of Colby or, you know, was under Colby's dad as a coach or whatever, then yeah, great, great, great profile so far. So Summer League is over. I told you, Andy, they were going to pull Ron Holland. I told you.
Yeah, when they shut Ron Holland down, I kind of shut Summer League down. I kind of saw the things that I had needed to see from Summer League. And actually, you mentioned this on the last pod, like just the direction the Summer League team has taken over Trajan Langdon's time here. It's just a big change, a big turnaround, and it's really good to see.
I mean, there's really only 4 guys that the Pistons featured, but before we get into those 4 guys, I take technically 5 with Ron. I mean, everybody on this Summer League team definitely deserves a shot on the Motor City Cruise, and I would love for them to come back in there. I mean, you already got guys that have been around a little bit already, like Trevor Keels. And then you had interesting rookies that fill a specific skill set of Zakai Ziegler at point guard, Miller Kopp as a stretch big, and then John Okamoto just continuing his journey here with the Pistons. And even the combo guards, who I'm always kind of like, yeah, I don't know about this, especially when their production isn't eye popping. TJ Matlock and Sincere Carey. Again, both guys that in the G League, you need those kind of bucket getters and definitely showed like, hey, I deserve a chance. And with the track record the Pistons already have under Trajan's direction with the Motor City Cruise, it's like, yeah, no wonder you're able to get Dawson Garcia and Bryce Williams, all these other guys to come here because they've already seen what you can do with Toulouse Smith and with Dennis Jenkins, who ended up being some of the best producers in the G League last year and Summer League standouts here. So I asked Andy, what are your top three takeaways from Summer League? But he was like, are there even three? There are just not many takeaways from Summer League because, like I alluded to here at the beginning, there's really only four guys they featured, and Ron doesn't really count because you could tell by game one, like, all right, he's graduated from Summer League. So, what are your takeaways? Do you have more than one? Maybe three, maybe two, maybe one?
I mean, for me, the biggest one was Ron, just in terms of shooting the three ball, looked much better, looked much more confident. Um, it's a small sample, it's summer league, so we'll see how much it carries. But him being in the 30% range for 3-point shooting, I think last year he was like 21 or 23 or something like that. Him being in the 30s makes just a big difference in terms of him being playable. But I mean, just watching it looked like he could shoot better than just like, low 30s. So for me, that's huge because I think I would like to see them playing Asar and Ron together. But if Ron's not shooting, NBA average 3-point, that is really tough to pull off. And then, Dennis Jenkins, I just think he looked really good. I mean, in my opinion, he looks deserving of giving him a roster spot. You made me look bad earlier when I said that, Dennis Jenkins on a two-way that we could probably move on from that. And you were like, no, like he looked really good last year. And then he played very well in the summer league and looked like he has made a lot of progress. And I actually think he's probably deserving of a roster spot. Um, and then Bobby Clintman, I wasn't expecting to see anything huge from him. There's still questions about how athletic he is, but overall, I think he fills the role of what we're looking to accomplish there. We're thin at the power forward spot, so I understand where people are concerned, but those would be my big takeaways from Summer League.
Yeah, so I alluded to it before. Five guys really that the Pistons featured. Ron Holland, obviously number one. Dennis Jenkins, probably second. Bobby Clintman, third. Chaz Lanier. Maybe Chaz and Bobby are kind of like combined for three. And then lastly, Toulouse Smith, which we'll ask you about Toulouse Smith here in a minute. But with Dennis, yeah, I mean, I just pay attention to the G League a lot. And he was one guy that I was just like, I pretty much overlooked him just because of his size. Guys that size don't typically succeed in the NBA. Even when we did the Portsmouth Invitational Tournament with Jam that season last year, I didn't feature him because I forgot that he was a late addition. But even then, I didn't go back and look at it. So apologies to Dennis because I was like, whatever. But from the minute he stepped on the court last year, his compete level, his defense is really good. Shout out, I think it was Steve. It was either Steve or Scott in the Slack chat. Sorry, I'm forgetting here, but one of them was like, the real question is Cade going to start or is Dennis going to start this season? And it's like, yeah, he played incredibly well because he really just had such a command out there. 5.4 assists per game to just 1.6 turnovers. Like he barely ever turns over the ball. Continued to have great blocks too. He didn't have as many blocks as he did last year, where he led the summer league in blocks. Toulouse Smith did end up doing that this year, but he still again makes defensive plays. I just because it's Trajan, like I really didn't want to pull the trigger on this comp, but so many people now have been like, you know what? Maybe this is Jose Alvarado 2.0, which you kind of start to see more of with that defensive fire and just his ability to direct traffic take care of the ball, and then really shot the ball well as well, 42.1% from three. It's only 3.8 attempts per game, but it seemed like the 3-point shot is getting better. And I don't know if Fred Vincent really has like anything to do with the G League affiliate, but I mean, between Dennis, Ron Holland, like there's clear, definitely like improvement in these 3-point numbers. I don't know if it has everything to do with Fred Vincent, but I mean he is here, and that is one of the things that he's known for is being a really good shot coach and shot doctor and getting things fixed. And with Ron's 3-point shot, like he took 5 attempts per game, which is fantastic. If he shot well, like honestly, I would not care if it was low volume because then it's like whatever, not really anything, but he took them, and that's the main difference I always continue to see with him and Asar, and I've said it so often, is Ron is happy to just put them up, even if they're not going in, which is what is going to help him go further. And even if he's like 30 to 33% from three this year, just keep putting them up because it makes guys defend you differently. It changes your, abilities and ceiling and just potential that can move forward. Please don't have a conscience. I mean, I would rather Ron's the kind of player that like you can't be timid. You cannot be timid. And I mean, not saying he is because none of his game is timid, but when you're developing your game like that too, it's so hard as a player to, see a bunch clank off and then just be like, okay, I should stop doing this. Maybe I'm hurting the team. I just hope behind closed doors they're like, cool, like don't stop putting them up because that's going to help out and put your development in there and just keep your confidence up. Again, Marcus Smart, I continue to say the forward version of Marcus Smart is really what we should be looking for here with that all world defensive ability, fantastic athleticism. The only thing bad I'll say about Ron is he still leads the dude. You got to chill out in terms of passing. I mean, 4 turnovers per game ain't gonna cut it, man. I wanted to make a little bit more argument for like why is Karras here when we got Ron who can do like a lot of the same things, but those turnovers still show you like this is why you bring in a Karras is because Ron is still very careless with the ball and obviously isn't passer first. It's something he'll have to learn to chill out on there. But as I've always say time and time again, I would rather have the guy that I have to tell to rein it in and reel in than the guy that I have to fire up. And Ron, you never have to fire up, but you definitely got to reel him a little bit more. Yeah, Dennis, I mean, this will be a running theme until the season starts probably, but I really wish last season like they tried things out more. Again, I hate to say this, but I really wish they didn't win 44 games the more that I think about it because it accelerates their timeline. It makes them not want to give minutes to a Dennis Jenkins, who's 1000% unproven commodity. And just with how well he's played, I'm like, man, he seems like somebody that, again, the Jose Alvarado, where Pelicans are kind of going nowhere. So, like, this guy's really good. Let's give him a shot. And he turned into a great backup point guard. I feel like Dennis could have been that same way. And then you don't have to invest in a Karis LeVert. You don't have to go and trade for Dennis Schroeder and waste that draft capital and other assets to go get him. Dennis definitely earns a spot here. And for what, a third or fourth point guard? I don't know about you, but I'm at the point where I'm like, I think Sasser's got to go and Dennis has got to replace him. Like, I feel much more confident in letting a Dennis Jenkins run out there for like 10, 15 minutes, or if somebody goes down with an injury, God forbid. Like, I would rather throw Dennis Jenkins out there than Marcus Sasser. I don't know what you think about that.
I I'm split on that because looking at just the role they play, I would say yes, 100%. But really, we just have the G League and Summer League. We don't have NBA minutes where even with what Sasser has done, if you want to say he has struggled, it's still NBA minutes as far as what he's shooting. Um, and I agree with you where you're like, it would have been nice if they didn't win so many games so they could have played some of those other guys. But in some ways, I don't think they really did speed up the timeline because they're just running it back and just replacing some of the vets that they had, even though like I think the fans were expecting them to like rush and change the timeline a little bit. So, but I think the writing is on the wall for Sasser, and it'll be interesting when the season does start to see if there's foul trouble and they do bring in a Sasser or if Jenkins is on the team, like who do they bring in? Who is the next guard that gets playing time?
Yeah, and this will be the next step for the Motor City Cruise G League affiliate under Trajan Langdon is like, okay, you got these guys to be featured. You got agents to send guys to you because you're actually going to play them and they can blow up and make a name for themselves in the G League. Now, are you actually going to develop them to earn a spot on the big roster and end up being actual NBA players? So that's another reason, not to say like they should just do it for that sake, but they earned it. Like Dennis Jenkins earned it, so it should be something. And that's the whole point of the G League is to find guys like this. If you're not going to do it, then what's the freaking point anyway? And Sasser's coming up on a contract year too, right? Are you going to re-sign him? Probably not. So move off of him and bring in a guy that fits better, that worked his ass off to get here, and that by all accounts is just a really good dude. On the other side of it, their draft picks. I mean, if you want to look at it in takeaways, number one is Ron Holland. Fantastic. Like, should earn more minutes. Everything about him looked great. Number two is Dennis Jenkins, like, is a real guy. They should not let him go. They should give him a roster spot. I think the number three thing for me would be Bobby doesn't look great, but Chaz looks like he knows what's up. Like, sure, if you look at the stats, are like Chaz Lanier's 33.9% from the entire field, and it's only like 10.4 points per game. Nothing else stands out. 1.1 or 1.8 rebounds, 2.2 assists, 0.8 steals, 0.4 blocks, 0.6 turnovers. But then you look at the three pointers, 8.2 3-point attempts per game. It was at 9 before that last game where he took a little less, and 34.1%. He has no conscience from three, which is what he needs to do and what he needs in order to be the guy they drafted him to be. Also, this is just like a personal thing to me. I'm like, man, he looks a lot bigger than I thought he was out there on the court. He's like 6'5" in shoes. And again, that 6'9" wingspan. And again, with Bobby, it's not just the lack of athleticism. It's like the hesitancy to shoot it from three, only 3.4 3-point attempts per game. And he took 8.4 attempts total. So less than half of his attempts come from three. He rebounded it better for sure. His passing, he's another guy to me of like, dude, you got to chill out. If you look at his averages on turnovers, it was like 3 per game, I want to say. And then he led the Pistons in turnovers with 15 and then just 12 assists. Again, we'll see. And my whole thing too with Bobby and why I say Chaz knows what's up. Like if Bobby's not stretching the floor, he ain't an NBA player. Like he just needs to be like Chaz of like fired away from three because you really don't bring anything else, man. Like you're not a gigantic slasher. You don't have a post game. Like your rebounding has never been great, even though it looked good this summer. Not a defender. Never been like a weak side shot blocker guy, and really can't play center either. I mean, he's just going to get manhandled around out there. Maybe it could be a taller, like small forward, power forward, where he spends most of the time at power forward. But Chaz to me is like, okay, this is legit. Like just a guy that knows I got to fire away from three. And if you give him more volume, because he didn't shoot it initially very well from three, and then as the summer league went on, his percentage went up. It's like, all right, now really all you got to do is defend, man.
Yeah, nope. I agree with that. And people, I think a lot of times right after people get drafted because they're just excited from the draft, they're like, oh, let's see where this guy is going to be in the rotation. But because the Pistons won so many games, like I don't see Chaz being in the rotation unless he is just knocking it down from the outside and defending, because then it's like, yeah, we can play. If that's all we're looking for is surround Cade with guys who can shoot the three and defend. And because of his size, it's much better than, putting Sasser out there. And if you are giving minutes to Karis LeVert and Jaden Ivey as being the primary ball handler, then you need a shooter around him. And with his size, it's just a better fit. So, like you mentioned, it just looks like Sasser's opportunity is going to get smaller and smaller.
Yeah, and again, my theme winning that many games. You say they didn't accelerate the timeline. I completely disagree with that because what did they pay Karis LeVert? Do you remember how much money he's making, buddy?
I I think I still don't know why he was the first player signed, but that's like the deal that he got and that Duncan got is basically like the average NBA deal you get now if you're like a mid player. The mid-level
But it also guarantees like second round picks ain't playing over you. And they might even guarantee that Ron Holland ain't playing over you, which I think is an absolute mistake. And I wish, again, I wish this season was more like, okay, now we want to push more towards 40 wins, or even like, okay, we're still taking this slowly to where Chaz Linear would actually get a shot in place of Karis LeVert. Again, Karis, if he's playing more than eighth man minutes, like what are we even doing here? Like he shouldn't be playing over Cade. He shouldn't be playing over Ivy. He shouldn't be playing over Sar. Shouldn't be playing over Duncan. He shouldn't be playing over Stu. He shouldn't be playing over um, Jalen Duren. He shouldn't be playing over Ron Holland either, but he probably is going to. And again, all those seven guys are who we're investing in long term. At that point, those minutes like are a role player. And to me, this is where I'm like, man, I really wish they would have just pushed Chaz into the eighth, ninth man spot at this point, because it's not going to hurt you either. And if he is at least a volume 3 point shooter, even if he sucks on defense, like again, eighth, ninth man, that's the type of role you want from a guy. And everybody in the NBA needs a dude that can shoot. I mean, Luke Kennard's getting paid 11 million in Atlanta for probably having that same exact role. And he's the absolute dribbling poops on defense.
Yeah, the only spot that I'll disagree there, and this is hard for me to say because I'm not a Dennis Schroeder fan, but I do believe that having the veterans, just the number of mistakes that the younger guys make, I just think it ends up making the team more competitive. But I do think that big picture, it's probably not the right choice in terms of trying to find a player who can fill in that role at a great price for a long period of time. Because I mean, if, like what you're saying, if Chaz Lanier works out, having him on a 4-year second round pick contract, like that's those are the edges that the teams who end up going farther, they they capitalize on those players because the salary cap limits you talent wise. So you need to find some players on the edges like that because they contribute far more than what you're paying them.
Yeah, so let's go down this road just a little ways, because this whole idea of like, oh, you shouldn't play second round picks, that's what loser teams think. Not to diss on you, Andy, but I'm saying like in general, like teams that think that way, they're the ones that consistently lose. Last year in Memphis, two picks after they took Bobby Clinton, the Pistons at 37. At 39, they took Jalen Wells, who played 2,043 minutes for the Grizzlies, main part of the rotation. Great shooting guard, wing there. Let's go back another season before that. And I'm just doing this on the fly because again, being the draft guy, I know every single year, if you look in this range of like 30 to 45, even just 30 to 40, you find guys of like, oh, look, here's and Andre Jackson Jr., who played 1,500 minutes that year, and again is already a key piece in their rotation. A great 3 and D, more of a defensive kind of guy, all within there. And Gigi Jackson, I mean, went 45th overall. Again, the Grizzlies know how to do this kind of thing. He ended up playing 1,600 minutes for them and is still a factor in their rotation. Great
What
stretch big.
Where was Braun picked? What drafted in Denver?
Who?
Braun.
I think he was in the first round. We'll probably get to him here in a minute. Max Christie went 35 overall. Lynn Williams, Vietnamese legend now, went 34 overall to OKC in there in what is this, 2022? I want to say, yeah, 2022. There were a couple of guys. I mean, even Jaden Hardy played 26 or 2,600 minutes that season and still is in the rotation there in Dallas. Musa Diabate played 1,500 minutes, took 43 overall. That 2022 draft. And then 2021, we got Jeremiah Robinson Earl. I know he kind of kicked around here and there. Herb Jones, our guy Herb Jones, went 35th overall. I mean, that was a travesty even back then, but 35, 36 was Miles McBride there. Io DeSunmu went 38. Jared Butler went 40 in 2021. I mean, this is just maybe we can go back one more year here and I'll get your answer on Brown here. And then in 2020, we got Xavier Tillman, my guy, senior, 35th overall. figured it. I mean, kicked around a little bit from Memphis, but then earned his way into the Boston rotation now. Vit Krejci, a guy who I couldn't figure out his pronunciation. Again, ended up being in Atlanta and is a great part of their rotation in there. Trey Jones went 41 overall in 2020. Jordan Nwora, 45th. I know he didn't work out, but he still ended up being a piece for the Bucks for a season before they moved on. Isaiah Joe in that year, 2020, went 49th overall for crying out loud. Our guy Paul Reed, 58th, way down there at the bottom, ended up working his way into Philly and all these little rotations. Utah even wanted him. And Sam Merrill, another guy, 60, the very last pick in 2020, just got paid this last season because all he does is shoot the ball, right? That's another Chaz Lanier guy of like, I'm sure Sam, I think, played point guard more and like probably has more ball skills, but I mean, they ain't paying him to do that stuff anyway. That's not why Donovan Mitchell loves playing with him. He loves playing with him because he just shoots that rock, man. So this is my point of anybody that's going to say this of like, they shouldn't give time. It's like, well, look at all these guys. They got immediate time too. It's not like they didn't earn minutes. Even Sam Merrill, who's probably towards the bottom of this. I mean, if you're a good team, you can draft a guy 60th overall and have him earn 1,133 minutes in his rookie year because you know his skill set and you know exactly where to put him in the rotation. So this is why I'm like, man, I really wish they would have just leaned into development. And so you could give a Chaz Lanier that eighth, ninth man spot instead of having to pay Karis LeVert 14 freaking million to do that.
I I understand what you're saying, but when we look at all those guys and you look at it for 30 teams, like the number of guys who actually are able to fill in the role, I just don't think it's very likely.
This is
And
why I argue for it with Chaz, though. Like with Bobby, it's like, yeah, sure, I get it. But like Chaz, older guy, you saw him develop over time, transferred over up in competition, and continued to dominate. So it's like the indications are there. I mean, that exact profile I just gave you was Jalen Wells' exact profile.
and I mean, it's a different player profile, but I mean, in some ways, you have to think that that's what Troy Weaver was thinking with Marcus Sasser, that he's an older guy and he'll be able to do that. But it's like, no, Troy.
Yeah, the difference between the Troy Weaver is he traded multiple picks away to move up to get him, overdrafting him in a spot he shouldn't have gone to, versus Trajan, who's like, I'm just going to sit here and wait and get him at 37. So yeah, it's there. And again, I hope Trajan remains smart in how he operates there. I just wish they would give guys like this who again clearly have a skill set, clearly could fit in the rotation. Again, I'm not arguing for him to start. I'm not saying he's a push out like, you know, Ivy or Massar or something dumb like that. I'm just saying, like, dude, at the end of the rotation, he would have fit a lot better. Your guy
And
Christian Brown went 21st in 2022.
okay.
Just
And to to support your point though, I mean, Pistons fans have to be prepared for a season where Levert is shooting like 31% from three, and maybe we do give more minutes to Chaz because, like, Levert could have a season where he shoots 37%, or much more likely he'll shoot 31%. And it's like, yeah, is that cutting it? Is that getting the job done? Because that's one of our complaints with Schroeder was like he's for his career, he's not a good 3-point shooter. And what do we need on this team? We need 3-point shooting.
yeah, and before we move on, Toulouse Smith's always the forgotten guy here. He should be talked about, but he barely broke the 20-minute mark. 21.5 minutes per game. It's clear like they still believe in him, but they didn't play him quite as much as the other guys there. If you looked at it here, just in terms of minutes, he ended up fourth. I mean, he barely beat Ron Holland, who they pulled 3 games. Oh, after 3 games, Toulouse played all 507 minutes. What are your thoughts on Toulouse Smith?
Um, I mean, I think he has done well. He does his job. However, like I think we talked about this while we were recording, but if the Pistons are really looking for a stretch big, like he's not that either.
But you know what he has developed into is like an actual defender, which is something he sucked at in college, and why I was like, oh, can't believe they picked this fool up. I mean, he led the summer league in blocks with 11. If you give the averages for that, being 2.2, which to me is the other eye-popping stat outside of just to learn. Dennis taking care of the ball, Ron Holland shooting. That's a gigantic leap from, again, look at this guy in college who just had seemed like he didn't have any interest in being a defender. And if you go back and watch this G League season, you can tell like that's the direction of like, dude, you got to get better on defense. And he was good. He was solid, and it was something that he clearly worked at. I don't think he can ever be this team's third big, but I would not put it out of the question now, like somebody else giving him a shot. I just wonder on offense is still where I like don't really know about Toulouse Smith. He probably has to lean into being just like a pick and roll guy no matter what. Because he did have great touch and really good post moves and was a wizard at getting points around the basket. But in this NBA, that is not the case. But again, this is another young man that worked his tail off, earned all the G League accolades and stuff, well versed. And honestly, like if they traded one of the bigs, or like they are planning for in a season or two that he ends up being the third big, I'm all for it just because of how he's progressed and how that third big spot is on this team, at least what, like 5, 10 minutes and just some injury spot stuff. He's working his way towards what they want, at least.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, he's made a lot of progress. He's just for what he's kind of redundant from what we already have at center, um, in terms of this team looking to do something different at the 5 position.
Yeah, and again, no disrespect to the other guys, Garrison Brooks, TJ Matlock, Dawson Garcia, Bryce Williams, Sincere Carey, Miller Kopp, Trevor Keels, John Okamoto. But like the Vin Zakai, they just didn't play him that much. They didn't play him as the other guys. And again, like we said, there are only 4 guys that cracked the 100-minute mark. There are only 5 guys that cracked the 20 minute per game mark. So it was clear, like, okay, these are the dudes we want to feature. And everybody else, I just don't think it would be fair enough to like give them any kind of a full breakdown just because they didn't play enough minutes. And even some of the guys that are on the fringes, like Bryce Williams, Dawson Garcia, they only played like 3 or 4 games. TJ Bickerstaff, the other guy, only played like 3 games. So again, it's like small sample size, but they all showed at least enough of like this was our skill for sure that we're here. Like Keels, oh, I'm still a big dude. I got to work on my 3-point shot. Bryce Williams, 3-point shooter on the wing. Ukumato, this ball of clay, is a athletic guy. Dawson Garcia, stretch big. TJ, undersized rebounder and all that stuff. It's like, okay, yeah, they still showed that they can do those things, and they should apply their trade in the G League and see if it can turn into something.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, which I just got from you, big change from last season's G League team when you were like, or summer league team, when you were like, no disrespect, but who are these guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, hopefully the next step for Trajan and the development is actually getting one of these guys onto the big club because they are in the spot, and that's why you have a G League team in the first place. All right, Andy, you ready to take the journey? I haven't, as we're recording this, I haven't quite worked out the actual title of this, but it does have to do with Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey and their contract situation. Because to me, I think it's going to make or break like this iteration of the Pistons, the motorcade, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, they're 2 of the starting 5. We don't foresee Ivy getting pushed out. We obviously think Duren is like the guy. Most people, maybe the team sees as a building block, but like when Zach Lowe on his podcast is like, yeah, Jalen Duren, Cade Cunningham, Asar Thompson, those are building blocks. It's like, okay, outside perception clearly has him pegged as somebody there. This is again, this is hard for me. Number one, what are your thoughts on them and their contracts? Because they're not signed, and we don't believe they're going to be signed anytime soon, right?
Yeah, this is so I agree with you that how this is handled will have a huge impact on where the team goes moving forward. And part of it is also just on how the NBA has changed a little bit with like if you like we talked about before we started recording, like current restricted free agents, there's a number of them still out there right now, and the teams and the players are very far apart. And in my opinion, some of these players are just going to get stuck where either they're going to, they're going to have to take a deal that they really don't like and are going to have to hope it's just a shorter one that they can get back to free agency to make money again. But like if you look at Kaminga, who, he still hasn't been figured out. But if you look at the players, um and also for Ivy and for Duren, it's also the archetype of player that they are, that they're not, unless, their play changes, which we can't expect it to change too much by this point in their development. But the the two guard who can get buckets but is not a great defender, and you're not completely sold on his outside shot, like that player has a limited value. And the big who is not a great defender, who can't stretch the floor, but can, roll to the rim and finish, they have value, but not you're not going to give them a large contract because that's like a skill set that is replaceable. And are you willing to give them contracts that you're betting on future continued growth? Because usually that's what the second contract is, that some guys are getting paid a little bit. I don't even want to say a little bit. Some guys are getting paid more than they're currently worth because the team is really hoping that they're able to fill those shoes. And looking at the current market, I would say that the Pistons are better off not extending them and letting them go to restricted free agency next year, and then seeing what type of deal they can get then to either, you know, keep them at a price that's, team friendly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my number one thing with them is like if Trajan extends them right now, it better be a really good deal. I'm talking like less than 20 million for each of them. Just because the Cam Thomas situation, I think, is a good barometer for Ivy. Obviously, Cam has scored more, but I think Cam is much more limited and thought of even more negatively on defense and like clearly does not care about passing. Shout out to Steve Hinson who sent me this thing of Cam Thomas being quoted of when Steve Nash was on the team as a coach. And Nash, they asked him like, "Hey, your coach Nash wants you to like get guys more involved and pass the ball." And the quote was, "Cam rolls his eyes and then gives his like BS response." So we know Ivy ain't doing that, but he doesn't have the talent and like the pure production that a Cam Thomas does. So that'll be an interesting one here. And just with what we've seen, like Andy said, with all these restricted free agents, like Santi got 17 and a half. Apparently Giddy, who knows what Josh Giddy's going to get. Kuminga, again, probably more productive than either of these guys. Duren and Ivy, right? Just based off of availability. I mean, was technically part of a title team, still is in the rotation there in Golden State. And then there's another restricted free agent who hasn't signed yet, right? If I remember correctly. Go to Spotrac and check it out.
I think you named all of the.
Grimes, that's the other one, Quentin
Oh,
Grimes.
yeah, yep,
Yeah,
that was.
I knew there was another big one. So that's and I mean, like you look at this and this is where like if you're one of those Pistons fans who's just like blindly optimistic about everything, then you're obviously just going to tune out everything that we have to say. But realistically speaking, Ivy and Duren are probably in this camp of like Cam Thomas, Quentin Grimes, Kuminga, and Giddy. Am I off base to think that?
So, because there's stretches where like Cam Thomas is like getting buckets and he is scoring and he's putting up numbers. And and honestly, sometimes you even have to wonder if teams, I know this sounds horrible, but do they reduce a player's role when it's like we don't want this guy to continue getting all these points because we're not going to pay him like because he's going to use these stats to say, hey, look, I'm averaging this or that. Because Cam Thomas for the last couple of seasons has had stretches where he's going off and scoring, and then all of a sudden it's like he's almost out of the rotation at times where it's like, what are they doing with this guy? And it could just be him. But like Quentin Grimes has been a up and down player, but he showed a lot at the end of his season in Philadelphia. But I would say that Duren and Ivy are more consistent than this group, but not by much. And do I think they have more upside? I do, but I'm not willing to give them a big contract and gamble on that in any way. If you're looking at making the team a contender, like overpaying both of them, I think dramatically changes what this team can do going forward.
Yeah, and as Andy was talking, I pulled up the Pistons cap sheet going forward, and you're like, "Oh, you shouldn't be too worried." I'm like, "Well, next season they only have 84 million on the books, but that's not even counting Karras. So I guess they don't. Sorry, Basketball Reference, shame on you. They haven't updated everything here yet, so they only have 84 million, but that's not accounting for Karras's 14. So you add that to 84, and that's 98 million. And then you add in Duncan's 15, and that's 113 on the books. And I'm theoretically, from a theoretical standpoint, say that they sign, and then Paul Reed signed what, 5, I think? Was it 5 million that he signed for? So yeah, you add Paul Reed's, and that's obviously 118. A really super team friendly deal. I'm talking like people would be blown away. It's both Ivy and Duren signed for around like 20 million annually. So just adding that 40 million on next season puts them at 158, which is probably close to whatever the salary cap is going to be next season, unless there's a gigantic spike, which I don't foresee. I don't know if anybody foresees that, because this season's salary cap is 154, 155 million. So even with these team friendly deals, then you're looking at pretty much right at the salary cap for, if you sign both guys, again, really team friendly deals around 20 million for that season. And then you're like, okay, well, Karras will come off the books after that. Well, guess what? We have a team option on Isaiah Stewart at 15 million. And that's when Asar is up for a new contract also as well. So sure, you're only at 73 million now, but if you have to renegotiate for Stu or lose him, that's going to suck. And then you have to renegotiate with Asar. Like, you can start to see our point here of like, when again, this is just with team friendly deals, nowhere near the max, which is going to be around like 32, 35, something like that. For these rookie extensions, I think Jalen Williams is probably the contract to look at, right? In terms of like what the rookie extension looks like. So let's look at Jalen Williams. Yeah, and he got 41 million in his first year. I don't remember if this account, I don't think it accounts for any of his accolades that he's won, because I've heard a few podcasts now where people are like talking about his agent being pissed off that like he didn't make all NBA this year, so that didn't like factor into like the bonuses and stuff that he gets. And now they're talking about like redoing the Rose Rule and things like that, to where any time within your first 4 years or whatever, it should factor in contract negotiations. So these are absolutely max rookie deals, 25%. That's what a max rookie deal is, 25%. That's 41 million, people. I was talking about both guys equaling 40 million cap hit. We're talking one guy. If one guy gets signed to a max deal, they're a 40 million, $41 million cap hit. Probably more realistically 42 million now if you wait another year and sign into a max. Like, that would be absolutely devastating. And both Andy and I, like, our argument is they have not earned that. Not at all. Nowhere close.
So, I mean, I think almost best case scenario, you're looking at them getting a deal like Jabari Smith Jr., which is like 23 million. Um, for 5 years. I think the last year's like 27 or 28 or something like that. But that would be that would be like, in my opinion, probably best case scenario of what the Pistons could do if and and that's where, depending on what Duren and Ivy think of themselves, like, do they believe they are a max extension player? Because if they do, they're looking at like $40 million. And if they don't, like, this 20 something $1 million over 5 years, I mean, you're still getting $100 million. That is hard for a player to turn down. And also, they're avoiding what would happen in restricted free agency next year. Would they be like one of these guys that we have right now who, like, the team is offering like a $14 million deal for like 2 years? Or would you rather take 5 years, $100 million? Or do you want to gamble that you can make 40 million from a team that's willing to do that? The current restricted free agent market, it doesn't look like there's any team that is going to open up the checkbook to steal a player. So yeah, unless it's a Jabari Smith Jr. type deal, I think it's restricted free agency.
Yeah, and if you're not watching this on YouTube, I pulled up the Jabari Smith deal, and Andy's right. It's 23-6 in the first year, and then 27-4 in the last year. And really, it goes down in terms of the percentages. So the first year, Jabari only counts for 14.29% of the cap. And then by that final year, the projection is that he only counts for 13.2% of the cap. So that's a pretty sweet deal. And it's in between where I think, to me, I'm like, 18 is what I would ideally like for the Pistons to sign, because that's like what a Coro got. And like, it's clear both guys are starters in the team's eyes. But I'm gonna break down here in a little bit why I'm leaning more towards that 18. And but I wouldn't hate these either. Like, I think anything between 20 and 25 million is fair market for both guys. Because again, looking at it just in terms of the percentages, that's under 15% for both guys. And it's like, yeah, that's what you want to look at there. If they could get a descending deal done, that would be even better, in my opinion. I mean, if it were like this Jabari deal, I might do it the opposite way, where I give him 27 in the first year and then have a descend, see if I can get up to do that. Because honestly, that's probably going to be better because of what I'm going to get into here. If you're wondering if Jabari's wrong, I mean, Jabari, I'm going to give you his career averages over 3 years: 13 points, 7.5 rebounds, 1.3 assists, 0.6 steals, 0.8 blocks per game. Shooting splits for his 3-year career average, Jabari Smith Jr., 51% from 2-point range, 34% from 3-point range, and then 80.5% from the free throw line. All of that translates into 54.6% true shooting. Keep these all in your mind, because Duren's obviously going to have better true shooting, but in terms of like the raw production, you can tell this is somebody that started almost every game, 194 starts out of 212. The production isn't bad. It's clearly a starter level, but it's indicating of like somewhere around 15% of the cap. We don't believe you are worth a max, but we also don't want to lowball you, which I think is where Ivey and Duren are at. So again, keep those averages in mind. Let's start with Ivey, because Ivey, I think, is the more difficult decision. Duren's pretty much straightforward to me, but put a pin in that real quick. Ivey, I mean, he scores, right? 16.3 points per game as a rookie, 15.4 sophomore year, and then only 30 games last year, but 17.6 points per game. The shooting splits are going up too. 45.7% from two as a rookie, 48.5% as a sophomore. And then again, it was only 30 games, 49% from two, third year, 34.3% on threes as a freshman or a rookie, 33.6% on threes as a second year player, and then 40.9% on threes in those 30 games. All of this looks great. I understand. The assists are all great. Ivey's average 4.4 assists for his 3-year average. What is the one thing that Ivey, without a doubt, is like his almost Achilles heel? And I guarantee that you're probably not going to get this right.
The turnovers or the defense?
Nope, it's neither.
The rim finishing?
Bingo. So let's start with the true shooting percentage. His true shooting percentage as a rookie, 52.8%. You're like, whatever, it's rookie year, right? Second year, 53.6%. Still bad. Last year, even with all the improved numbers, 56.9%. None of those are good. And the average for 3 years is 53.8%. Like that's less than Jabari. That's less than Jabari's true shooting percentage, even though the numbers and like the assists, he is more multifaceted there. But Jabari's more multifaceted on defense. I mean, they've been able to play him at like small forward and center for crying out loud. He can do a bunch of different things on defense that helps him out a lot. Ivey's a negative on that side. So the true shooting percentage to me is like the number one starter for this of like, okay, why is his true shooting percentage not good when the profile of him is he's supposed to be a good finisher and you can see his 3-point numbers improving. So why in the world is his true shooting percentage bad? And Andy alluded to it. Let's look at his shot chart. Last season, in again, just 30 games, but Ivey shot 108 of 197 shots at the rim. That's 54.8%. If you're watching this on YouTube, I put the color scheme here as like traditional. Red is hot, meaning like, you know, you're hitting your shots, they're on fire, and blue is cold. White is neutral. Ivey's light blue at the rim. League average last year at the rim was 59.5%. So Ivey is a good 5 percentage points below league average at the rim. Inexcusable for his game and who he is. I think that's the number one question to start with is with Ivey's like, how come he is not finishing better? And it's number one affecting his true shooting percentage no matter what. 3-point numbers look good though. I mean, he's red hot from top of the key, left wing, right wing. So those are good. I mean, it seems like he's turning into more of a 3-point shooter slowly. But if you go back and track Ivey for a while, this is his rookie year. On shots less than 5 feet, 53%. Not good. If you go to his sophomore year on shots less than 5 feet, 57.5%. Not an improvement either. And then this year, shots less than 5 feet, 57.3%. It's pretty much staying the same. Like that's his number one thing that he has to improve because that's supposed to be what he's good at, right? Is putting pressure on the rim and being able to finish that thing. And what makes this worse, Andy? There's something that makes this worse. What could it be?
Does he not have a high enough rate of drawing fouls?
His free throw attempt rate is 28.1% last year. I think part of the like turning into more of a 3-point shooter, while I agree that should be what he does. And if you remember, about a year ago, I made the argument that Ivey and Cade should shoot 5 or more threes per game each, so 10 total, because the numbers indicated like good things happen and they shot better that way. But I think it's hurting him in that regard. 36.2% free throw attempt rate as a rookie. 31.1% free throw attempt rate as a second year player, and then that 28.1% as a third year player. Number one, none of those three free throw attempt rates indicate lead guy that you want to give the ball to more. I mean, if you're going to be a free throw generator, you got to be 40% or more. And then that it keeps going down. Couple that in with his rim finishing numbers, and it's like, again, why I'm saying like you can't pay this guy right now. And if they do give him a big contract, if they give him anywhere, I even think if they give him the Jabari Smith Jr. contract right now, that's a mistake. I mean, never maintain league average at true shooting, never is improving his free throw attempt rate, continuing to be struggling at the rim. Like, what is going on?
So, I mean, maybe this is crazy, but I would feel completely comfortable giving him the Jabari contract just because if those numbers, which for 3 seasons have not improved, if they do improve, you have a scoring monster. Like he would be, and I guess combining all those things, my biggest red flag is he's never been able to make the bench unit function. Like the offense always bogs down on the bench unit. Like he's not capable of doing that. And if you're going to pay him that money, he should be able to do that. Like that shouldn't be an issue. Um, and the injury last season really makes this extension so difficult because we don't even know if that 3-point shooting, it was 30 games. Like we don't know like how legit that is. I mean, to bring up an old Pistons player like Sadiq Bey, I think it was his rookie year. He was like an elite 3-point shooter, and it just got
Record
worse.
setting, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it just got worse every year since then. And then it's like, oh, well, we knew he wasn't really a 3 and D guy, but he had the three. And then it's like, well, he's not really a three. Like, what is he doing now? And I mean, I still hope he comes back and recovers from injury and becomes a great player again. But just along those lines, it's like you have to be able to do certain things if we're going to pay you.
Yeah, and let me be clear. I'm not saying they shouldn't pay Ivy. I'm just saying they shouldn't pay him right now. I really think they have to wait. A couple other things to give that indication of like paying him now would be a mistake. Look at this offensive rating, Andy. If you don't know what offensive rating is, it's an estimate of points produced or scored per 100 possessions. As a rookie, Ivy's offensive rating 103. Second year player 104. Even in this improved third year, again, it's only 30 games, 108. Tell me if those are good or bad numbers, Andy.
Well, since the defensive rating next to it is much, much higher, I'm going to have to say, no, those are not good numbers.
I believe offensive rating was like, or the average points scored per game last season was like 114, 115. Anything below 110, like you're not a good offensive player normally. And again, I know I'm piling a lot of stuff on Ivy, but I'm just giving it as pause of like because people want him to be the second scorer, right? A lot of people talk him up, and it's easy because he's an aesthetically pleasing player. But this is one of those guys that like you got to dive into the numbers, and you can't always just think with stats. I mean, you can't always just think with the film test. You got to combine the two. And I think Ivy, like I said, is really difficult because I'm going to give a bunch of things to poo on him, like his on-off numbers here, which I'm showing you now. I mean, even on the offense, on-off numbers last year were not good.
You, yep, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I accidentally muted myself. I don't know what I was doing. Last season, the numbers were not good for Ivy's on-off numbers. Remember, on-off is the difference of like how good is the team when you're on the court, or how good is the team when you're off the court. If it's, and again, think of this as a score that you got on a paper or a test in school. 100 is really good. Zero is bad. Right? Anything that makes you think, oh, I got to talk to my parents about this, bad. So Ivy last year, points per 100 possessions, on off numbers, 29th percentile. Effective field goal percentage for Ivy on off numbers, 49th percentile, not good. And the defensive numbers have never been good. 10th percentile in points per 100 possession as a rookie, 58th percentile second year, and then 16th percentile in these 30 games in the third year. Effective field goal percentage on defense, 14th percentile and as a rookie, 53rd percentile as the second year player, and then 20th percentile in these 30 games as a third year player. Again, all of these to me indicate you cannot pay this guy right now because sure, he looks good. I understand there are improving numbers, but there's nothing here to indicate that he's at the Jabari level of, okay, we have a stable role and we know who this guy is. Because that's the one thing with Ivy. I don't think we know who this guy is yet.
So, how much, and I'll pull Duren into this too, because for this, I think it fits. How much of Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren's paycheck do you think casual fans look at just based on how they look style wise, the dunks, the Showtime plays, like the excitement, like all that stuff? But when you consider paying them statistically, It's like, and and this is all based on having Cade Cunningham, because this is where we've talked before about trading both of them. And it's not that we don't like the guys, but it's like if I can get someone who is more consistent at doing the job they're supposed to do, doesn't that make the team better? Like there's less of a risk. And in giving them these contracts, the only way, I guess you can say, like almost looking at it like if you're familiar with Moneyball in baseball, how they're just like you maximize winning. Like basically the way teams maximize winning is by getting more production from the player than what they're paying them on a contract. That's why like OKC was so good. They had guys on rookie deals producing at like all-star levels where it's like, yeah, you're going to win a lot of games when your payroll is based on rookie contracts, but they're giving you quality NBA player production. That's how you win games. But if we're paying them and they don't, it's like, and this is where I know you're very hesitant, where it's like if you give them these deals and nothing improves, you're stuck. Like, and then you look at Asar's extension coming the year after, it's like this very well, without trades, this very well could be the future team with players that are, I don't want to say flawed, but they're just not, they're not going to get Cade where he needs to go, if that makes sense.
Yeah, this is like Sacramento paying like Malik Monk when Malik Monk had like one standout year where he was super efficient and then disregarded his defensive limitations and that like he's a sixth man ideally and like, what percentage of the cap should you be paying a sixth man ideally and stuff like that. And I love Sabonis. I like watching him play, but then again, he's another guy that like if you pay him a max slot, like he just has so many limitations that it's going to keep you from being able to build out the rest of your roster. And I mean, they have a couple guys on their roster that are kind of like that too. And a lot of those teams that get stuck in the middle, like Atlanta's been that way for quite a while of like they find guys that are good, but like Onyeka Okongwu, Bogdan Bogdanovic before DeAndre Hunter, nobody would say they're necessarily bad, but they are these players that limit. Like if you're relying on them to be one of your five starters, like you better have three or four Trey Youngs that make up for their lack of creation or their lack on defense and whatever. And then Yeko Kong was a good example of like, dude, they're stuck with him. He's not bad. And you look at his numbers and you're like, okay, he does things, but nobody wants the center who doesn't really defend and can't stretch to the floor and isn't like an elite rim runner or shooter like that. So yeah, it sucks. And again, I'm giving bad things on Ivy, but my point with Ivy is going to be don't pay him right now because we understand what he could be. And I'll give you some glimmer of hope here, starting with his 3-point versus 2-point attempts. It's slowly reversing course of like him taking more 3-point attempts than 2-point attempts and those increases coming around there. Rookie year, 353 point attempts. Sophomore year, second year, 369 attempts. Only took 154 in those 30 games, but the averages were 5.13 point attempts per game. If you times that by 75, I just assumed 75 because Ivy made 74 games rookie year, 77 his second year, so 75. We'll say he made 75. That would equal to roughly around like 380 3-point attempts. So it's like, okay, it's still increasing slowly. And then with the 2-point attempts, 633 as a rookie, 604 2-point attempts as a second year player. And then it was only 259 as a third year player, 8.6 2-point attempts per game. And this is the one I don't remember. I guess I can do that right now. If I do the same thing. So 8.6 is what I said. That 8.6 and you times that by 75, that equals to about 645. So the 3-point attempts is slowly coming around there. That might be a difference between Ivy maintaining these terrible true shooting percentages like 52, 53 and approaching something above 55%. The other thing, he hasn't taken too many of these shots, but if you look at his attempts every year, like let's see, which year is this? So this was last year. He only took 40 shots in the mid range in those 30 games. The season beforehand, he took 95 shots in the mid range. And then the rookie year, Ivy took 146. That's something that seems like he's slowly eliminating, which, like, no duh, man. You shouldn't have been taking those in the first place anyway. And I think it's one of those things that you and I were worried about when the team was like, yeah, we'll play him at point guard there. We're like, oh, are they going to allow him to put up stupid mid range stuff? But again, looking at the shot chart from last year, that's another very good glimmer of hope is like, look at that mid range. It's like single digit attempts, except maybe from this right like baseline. Everywhere else, like 12 attempts, 1 attempt, 2 attempt, 4 attempt, 9 attempt, 4 attempts. It's like, okay, it's clear he's eliminating that shot. And really, where it comes down to is you got to figure out the finishing. Honestly, all he has to do is figure out the finishing because the 3 point numbers slowly come up. And last year, again, shot it really well. We don't expect him to shoot 40.9% or whatever it was, over 40% from the field the entire year. But I mean, shooting it at like 37% seems pretty reasonable, right? And if you get 37% from three on over 5 attempts per game, and then you get your rim finishing to around league average, like 59%. And again, Ivy has all the tools, he has the game, all that stuff. There should be no excuse for him to at least meet league average. By the end of the season, you're looking at like something like 57% true shooting percentage. And all of these are highly reasonable based off the numbers and where it's going. And my last glimmer of hope with Ivy in those 30 games, again, 5 or more threes. How many out of those 30 games, Andy, did Ivy shoot 5 or more threes?
How many of the 30 games did he shoot 5 or more threes?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna say 17.
18, you were very close. What do you think he shot on those games? Like what percentage?
So what was his percentage on the games that he shot more threes?
Yep, on the games where Ivy shot 5 or more threes, what was his percentage?
42%.
42.7%. Very good. He was 47 of 110 shots in those games, 18 games where he shot 5 or more threes. He took 6.1 3 point attempts per game in those. And what do you think the Pistons record was in those 18 games?
In those 18 games, they were 11-7.
You're spot on, man. So it was 10-8. Very, very, very close again. Again, that's probably the most glimmer of hope. And from the season before, if it was just that small sample size of 18, I wouldn't put any stock into it. But we've already done this. Go back and listen to our Jaden Ivey already work podcast from about a year ago, and then put that in here. It's like the numbers still indicate shoot more threes, man. And I'll next time I will do a little bit more diving into Ivy because I do want to look at like Zach LaVine, who I think is another comp of where to think of Ivy in year three. I know Zach has always been a way better finisher than Ivy, but like the jumper took a while to come around and really be consistent. And I want to find somebody who's like way worse than that and some middle ground because my gut tells me that like Ivy's probably going to fall in the middle ground just based off of like looking at that player type, which again would be another reason not to pay him right now. But definitely the like shooting 5 or more threes, that has to be a mandate, like carved into their wrists. Shoot 5 or more threes every game, man.
Yeah, no, that all makes sense. And certain things, like I know we're talking about Jaden Ivey, but that's why you're like Chaz Lanier can get playing time because that's what he does. He just shoots threes and knocks them down. If he can be a defender, it's finding the roles that fit around Cade, and that's where I don't want my opinion on extending Ivy and Duren to sound negative, but it's just that Cade Cade can be Cade was successful at the end of last season without Ivy. I know it was only one round of the playoffs, but when you mentioned that on one of our other pods where you were like, we did all this while he was hurt. Not saying that like he's a limiting factor, but it should let you know that he wasn't a contributing factor to get us there. And it's like if you could replace him with someone else who's already better at those things that we need, So, and I'm someone I do believe in Jaden Ivey. I don't want to see him traded. I want to see him on this team. But just realistically, building a team when you have Cade Cunningham, it's like, what do we need to surround him with? And sure, we're going to stagger the minutes this year, but it's like in the end, maybe the team is better off with just getting a two guard who can handle their job and getting a backup point guard to run the offense for 15 minutes or whatever it is that's required. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same way of like, I don't want to see him go quite yet because we've been burned so many times, especially on guards, like not letting them to develop over time. And with how restricted free agency has gone with these kind of guys, it's like, yeah, hold on to him, let it play out the whole year because there's very, 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 very little evidence to suggest that like somebody's just going to rush up there and sign him to an offer sheet of like 25 million or more because it just hasn't materialized for a lot of guys so far. And it didn't even materialize for like Santi Aldama, who didn't have all the quirks that, all the other guys waiting are now, like Giddy and Grimes, and Cam, and all those guys. All right, Jalen Duren's more straightforward in my opinion. 3-year averages for Jalen Duren: 11.5 points per game, 10.2 rebounds, 2.1 assists, 0.6 steals, 0.9 blocks per game, 1.7 turnovers. I mean, that's less than Jabari, except for him the rebounding. And Jalen Duren always been fantastic. True shooting, 67.2% true shooting. I mean, he was one of the leaders in like field goal percentage and true shooting last season. My main thing with Jalen Duren, why I say it's straightforward, is outside of rebounding, what does Duren do by himself?
He does nothing.
Yeah, I mean, Cade generates. mm, I don't want to be too mean, but in my gut, it's like Cade generates like 90% of his offense.
The the area that and I'm not the first one to say this, but the area that he does have potential though is when teams are trapping Cade and they're getting the ball to Duren and then he's making the decisions. Like he did a good job like finding Beasley and our 3-point shooters on the wings. And I think against the Knicks, he surprisingly held up better when there was no Isaiah Stewart, that I was shocked that he held up so well, which it was encouraging as far as what he could do going forward, but
He
just his
still got cooked on from three. I mean, Tobias had to lock down Cat, not Duren.
yes, and but still his archetype of a player, it's just limited. The the roll and cut big is just, I'm sorry, it's like you're unless and he doesn't have the defense that you would typically expect from that type of center. So his rebounding is outstanding, but then again, you're like outside of rebounding, like what are you paying him for?
Yeah, he can't generate his own shot, right? The passing is like nobody should take that away from him of it being like something you can hope in, but we've already laid it out. Like at this point in his career, if you put him up against like a Şengün, Sabonis, or Bam, it's so much less. Like you can't bet on that. And it would take a gigantic leap forward this year in playmaking for that even to be a thing. Sure, it's nice and it's fine that he can do it, but he clearly is not on that level to where it would make you want to believe in him and give him a Jabari Smith type of contract. And again, this is the only year where he's averaged 1 block per game. Why I say this is an easier evaluation comes down to defense, probably. Couple things right here. Last year, this is a regular season. Jalen Duren's defensive field goal percentage, 49.9%. That's pretty bad. On three pointers, 37.2%. We all know Duren gets absolutely cooked from three anytime you have a stretch big. Again, that's why in the Knick playoff, they had Tobias guard Cat because Duren, when he did it, he got annihilated by Cat. 55.9% on two pointers again. If you're a player on offense and you're shooting 55.9% from two and 37.2% from the field, like you're cooking, man. And the most worrisome of all, as I've said many, many times, on shots 6 feet and in, Duren was 62.9%, gave up 62.9% on shots 6 feet and in. That's inexcusable. We saw league average was 59.5% on shots at the rim. So Duren's giving up way more than league average on shots at the rim. And oh boy, Oh boy, you ready for these on-off numbers, Andy? These are like absolutely catastrophic.
These are your favorite numbers.
I mean, they tell the tale though, right? 20th percentile in points per 100 possession for Duren on defense. 2%. In the two dose, the second percentile in effective field goal percentage. He's plus 4.7. That means opponents shoot 4.7 percentage points better whenever Duren is on the court. Part of this has to do with Isaiah Stewart being the best rebounder or best rim protector in the league, being the guy who replaces him. But that's still not good. Very, 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 very bad. These are, again, catastrophic numbers. And what's more catastrophic is that points per 100 possession on offense, Duren's in the 81st percentile, and effective field goal percentage on offense, he's in the 89th percentile. So you're like, oh, maybe he balances out. Guess what? If you look at just the differential, which is the efficiency differential, basically like when you take what he did on defense and you take what he did on offense, like what percentage does that equal out into? And Duren's in the 52nd percentile. So he's like the definition of average if you just look at it from like, okay, what is he giving on offense versus what is he taking away on defense? You can't be paying that guy that much money when number one, again, he's very limited on offense. Sure, he has some passing, but it's not projecting to be, you know, top level like you want from a Sabonis or Şengün or those guys. And those defensive numbers I gave you, I found his statistical doppelganger pretty much with these defensive field goal percentages. You want to know who that is? Take a guess.
Oh, I don't have a clue.
I'm gonna bring him in here right next to Duren. If I would have just put these up, you would have thought it was Duren too. Overall defensive field goal percentage 50.4%. So just a little bit higher. 37.1% on threes, almost identical, and then 55.6% on two-pointers. With Duren, we said 55, 37. This guy's giving up pretty much the same. This guy is Onyeka Okongwu. So, I mean, defensively, we're really looking at Duren as like Onyeka Okongwu, who we just said is somebody that the pucks cannot get off of, right? Again, he's not terrible, but he's not good enough that teams are like, okay, we want to waste some of our cap space uh, on this dude who is also a good rim running dude who's produced okay. I mean, Duren's definitely produced better than him in his first 3 years. Duren's at least cracked double digits and is a far superior rebounder. But guess what? Onyeka Okongwu has averaged over one block per game his sophomore year, his third year, and his fourth year. He's in his fifth year last year. He just missed out on that. And he's continued to try at least to expand his range to 3-point. And last year, he probably had his best year from three, 32.4% on 2 3-point attempts per game. He's at least trying to expand these things out while also being pretty similar now to Duren as a passer, 2.3 assists in his fifth year. So at least Duren has that on him of like, okay, he's a little bit ahead of him as a passer, but he's still way behind on defense. And you look at the true shooting percentage for a Onyeka Okongwu, 66.5% across 5 years. I mean, it's pretty similar to Duren. Block percentage, 4.2% across 5 years. That's the one thing I didn't look at with Duren. Let's go back and take a look at what Duren's block percentage was across these 3 years, and it's 3.2%. I mean, even if you want to break it down that way in terms of like what was Onyeka Okongwu's block percentage in the first 3 years, I mean, it was 5.1%. So there are a lot of similarities to me when I watch Onyeka Okongwu and a Jalen Duren. I don't know if everybody's going to agree with that, but definitely, again, if you line up their defensive field goal percentages side by side, they're both 55 from two, 37% from three, and then Duren edges him out with four. He just cracked under 50% defensive field goal percentage overall. But again, you factor in the defensive stuff on off numbers, just terrible. And I actually haven't looked at Onyeka's on off numbers, so we'll see if he ends up being similar to Duren. Oh, look, he only had a couple years where he's that low. third percentile, second percentile as a rookie, super abysmal sophomore, and third year he was over 75% on points per 100 possession, and then he was over 88% in the effective field goal percentage, but then has regressed these last 2 years. So, and look at that, he's pretty much similar to Duren on the offense these last 2 years: 81st points per 100 possession, 82nd effective field goal percentage, and then last year for Atlanta, 86th percentile points per 100 possession and 80th effective field goal percentage. I mean, look at this too. Onyeka Okongwu was not good. We just gave his defensive numbers, right? But the differential of like what is he giving on offense versus what is he taking away on defense? He's 75th percentile because he's in the 48th percentile on points per 100 possession on defense and the 40th percentile on effective field goal. Those are terrible numbers still, but they're better than Duren's. I mean, this is where you're at with this kind of a player. It's like you got to hope they're regular bad, not catastrophic bad. And, you know, I know there are a lot of Jalen Duren fans out there, but I'm sorry, he's catastrophically bad on defense. There's no way around that.
So what contract are you giving him?
What was the report that the Pistons really wanted this season, this offseason?
You're sending him away to get a stretch big?
I mean, I need to know. I'm desperate to know if those reports have any truth to them. Because if they do, then the team's already moving on from Jalen Duren. They don't want him. And all that stuff I just laid out with Ivey, right? Of like, he's not very efficient yet. Like maybe the numbers indicate like he's getting better here. I wish he could improve his rim finishing. You know what fixes all of that?
Having a stretch five to give him more room at the rim?
Yeah, and we got Asar and Ron who plays perfectly next to those guys. You're muted again.
A stretch big?
Yeah. Again, I want to hope that that report was true. And it makes sense. We've said it so much. I mean, so many Pistons people have said it so much of just like, man, a stretch five would really help. And it's why we were so excited about Isaiah Stewart. But then it brings that question of like, why did he stop shooting threes? Then like, well, if you really wanted a stretch five, why did you stop that? Or why did you allow it to stop? If Stu was like, I don't want to do this anymore. That's why to me, again, Duren's the easy one. Cause again, the defense is terrible. I mean, you can't even be regular bad like Onyeka to be a positive net overall. And it's just like, how long are you going to wait on this? So where and it's not the case to me too, where it's like, well, he's making strides, like it's clear. It's like, no, it's the third year and he got worse, like so much worse. And I understand the playoff stuff, but again, like you needed Tobias. Without Tobias, Cat just murders Duren, and you can go back and look at that film as well.
I think you were the one who said it usually takes bigs longer to figure out the defensive end, but I also know you've done a number a ton of research just showing, yeah, but even the bad ones like have been improving at a rate faster than what Duren is improving at. And at the rate he's moving at, the comparables were not good.
Yeah, the guy you would hope he would be like is like a Nick Claxton, who I put up here. I mean, by Nick Claxton's second year, he only played 580 minutes, so it's not comparable in terms of sample size to Duren. But I mean, by his second year, he was in the 98th percentile in points per 100 possession on defense, and the 98th percentile also on effective field goal percentage. And then those numbers came down to like 70s, 80s when he got his full role. And unfortunately, since he's gotten paid, it hasn't been consistently in there. But this is a guy, again, limited offensively, can't create his own shot, is more of a rim runner. But the thing he does is block shots and was a league leader in field goal percentage, like the leader in field goal percentage when he played with Kyrie and KD and those guys. I mean, Duren plays with Cade. Cade's at that level already. We know Cade can get into that level. And it's like, boy, even if Duren leads the league in field goal percentage, like the defense has to be passable. And even then, I still just think it's a square peg in a round hole. They still want to switch everything, which I don't think Duren's ever going to be good at.
Yeah, that will be interesting to see what they do if because that is a square peg in a round hole as far as what they're trying to do. And the other thing that and I think we talked about it on one of the pods last season, but it was interesting that Stu and him like balance each other out. But the problem is like the team was most successful when both of them there were like career low minutes for Stu, like from his rookie season, and then Duren still played less from the year before, where it's like, well, we're just gonna balance this out. But just long term, I wonder what what that really looks like.
Yeah, and again, I'm putting Claxton's numbers here. Like that's the ideal that you want a player like Duren to be, where like, okay, he's cracking double digits. He's not like the guy, but again, a league leader in field goal percentage, a league leader in shot blocks, and just really commits to that role on both ends, which Duren hasn't done so far. And it's hard. I am the one that said you got to be patient with bigs and where does it come out? But with Duren, it's just like, man, there just haven't been indications that he can fit the scheme and that like he really wants to improve on defense. And even in the playoff stuff with the glimmer of hope, it's like, well, he did so well because they hit him and they took him completely away from the player that would expose him and did expose him when he did have to guard him.
I still hope we keep him.
Yeah. I'm hoping for a stretch big, man. Like it is what it is. And between Duren and Stu, it's like you're playing two guys for the one player that you want. You want the Stu defense. He sucks on offense. You want the Duren offense, but he sucks on defense. That's another one where it's like, sure, if you paid Duren the same thing that you're paying Stu 15, then you're paying 15 million between two players where you could be spending 30 on a guy that like is a difference maker.
Miles
Whereas
Turner.
you're trying to hide both guys right now, one on one side of the court.
So you could just spend 30 million on Miles Turner.
Or 27, which is apparently what he got, right? Yeah, I mean, honestly, the more I've dived into the Duren stuff, the more I'm like, man, if Bam ever gets disgruntled, like that's the perfect player for this squad. I mean, that's what they want Duren to be, really. Switch happy, like really good passing, can do a bunch of stuff in DHO, is able to create his own shot, maybe not like top offensive option, but double digit score consistently while still crashing the glass and all that stuff. Like that's who they want him to be, but that's just not who he is.
Looking up, how much does bands get paid?
It's not a lot because he signed his max deal like 2, 3 seasons ago, I want to say. Pull up Miami right here.
37.
Yeah, and then 48, 52, 56. I mean, to me, if you had a Cade and Bam led team and then just fill it with shooters, and especially with Asar and Ron, like that's a pretty fierce defense. Factor in Stu.
No one would ever score.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, to me, like the Ivy thing, you got to wait it out. But I mean, I've been done with Duren, but the more I've looked at it, the more I'm like, I think he's more the problem more than Ivy. I know Ivy missed that time, and like most people would think, well, they look good without him, so maybe they can deal him. But it's like, actually, if you could replace Duren with somebody who could stretch the floor, or somebody like, I can't believe I'm saying this, Onyeka Okongwu, who's passable, bad on defense, it actually does improve the team.
I I think unfortunately, which for the Pistons, we've had to say this too many times. Um, we still need to get some minutes of our lineup playing together because we talked about it a little bit, but you've mentioned it before that like last season the biggest X factor is probably Asar Thompson and his influence on the second, 2/3 of the season. And I would agree with that. And then you have to really wonder like how much worse would Duran's numbers on defense look like if Asar wasn't on the floor with him? And but then it's just really finding out like, okay, if we are playing Cade, Ivy, Asar, Tobias, and Duren, like what what does that get us? Like how good are we? And then even in the future, and I know people think it's crazy because we're not trading anybody, but if Ron is shooting good enough, is it Cade, Ivy, Ron, Asar, and Duren, and then Tobias is like coming off the bench, and you've got your vets and stuff. But how good is that team? Like, is that really what they're looking? It's just so many questions. But if we overpay Ivy and Duren, it locks you into saying, well, this is what we are.
Yeah, and on both guys, even though I'm arguing for like Ivy, if they don't improve beyond this, then it's like you're looking at mid 40s every year, and we're like Grant Hill Pistons all over again, right?
Yeah, and I haven't followed the Pacers too much, but like they're in a situation with Matherin where it's like, what is this guy? What is his role, and how much are we going to end up paying him? And I think Ivy's deal and his deal are going to be like what some agents going to use the other person's deal to be like, hey, this is my player's better than this guy. He should be getting more. When the other teams will be like, your player's just like this guy. We're not giving him a penny more.
Yep. It's definitely a game of chicken between Keegan Murray, who went ahead of Ivy and Matherin. Like none of them are signed, and all indications are neither of those none of those three teams want to sign them right now. And the first one that blinks is probably going to make the biggest mistake.
That's a good way of putting it because you have like three similar caliber players who would then be restricted free agents. And it's like, are any teams going to like clear the books to like go after one of those guys? Probably not. And it just makes it more likely that the teams keep their guys on decent deals because of restricted free agency.
I'm glad you brought up Jabari because let's do this now for our last thing. So that was the 2022 draft. And Jabari was the number 3 overall pick. So that does matter somewhat of like the order. If you're picked that high, you're obviously thought of more. I mean, Keegan's played more minutes than anybody. The Kings historically don't make great decisions. You would think they'd be the first to blink, and Keegan would probably have the best argument out of the bunch of like, well, he's played more minutes than anybody out of this draft class. Like, why shouldn't you reward him here? He scored over 3,000 points. He shot 37.2% from 3-point range. And then Matherin is right behind Jabari in terms of minutes played for 5,909. But it's like, you haven't cracked 6,000 yet. And Jabari got to 6,500. Their 3-point shot, bro, is all over the place. That's what we brought you in for. So it seems like his argument is less than. His argument is way less than all those guys is freaking Ivy, who's played 5,419 minutes, which unfortunately is due to the injury. But again, if Trajan's the first one to blink, I really think it's a dumb decision, unless it's a super team friendly deal of like 18 million, and that's what Ivy like wants to take. Because again, here just looking at that of like the first guy to get paid out of the non Paulo and J Dub guys and chat was Jabari, and all these other guys are behind him in terms of minutes, except for Keegan. And so Keegan might be the next domino to fall, but yeah, in Ivy, and then Duren's in here too as well, 5,481 minutes. And he's right behind Christian Brown. So that should be another point of like, dude, we've invested all this time in you, but you haven't even played as many minutes as Christian Brown, who I don't even think like has started half the games in his. He's only started 87 games in his career. So for Jalen Duren's availability, he's still not as good as the guy that went like 20 picks after him or whatever it was.
And I wonder if the injury is actually something that influences him or Duren to sign for a team friendly deal. And when I say team friendly, they're still looking at getting like $100 million. Because when you think about it, like, yeah, Ivy's recovering from his injury, but what if it was an injury that you don't quite recover the same way? Like locking in $100 million is not something easy to pass up. And that's why, like, we look at like the Herb Jones extension where we're like, why would you extend? Like, go hit the open market and like everyone's going to be fighting for you. And he's probably like, I'll just take this money now. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, and I'm glad we did this because there's another guy that's already gotten paid, and that's Andrew Nemhart, who's making I think like 18 million per season, and he's sixth in terms of minutes, right behind Benedict Mathurin, and still in front of Duren and Ivey. So again, this is why we say in negotiations they shouldn't be signed right away because there are still things here indicating of like Jabari's played more minutes than you. You're not J Dub. You're not Paulo. You're not Keegan. Even Andrew Nemhart, like he's earned his deal because he's been consistent and helped them get to a finals squad. Like Ivey's right in between Duren and Shaden Sharp, and I mean it's a clear drop off after Nemhart too. Christian Brown, Jalen Duren, Ivey, Shaden Sharp, Jeremy Sohan, Dyson Daniels, Walker Kessler. And even Akbaji, Tar Eason, Max Christie, like all those guys should get paid, but it's clear nobody really quite knows what they are yet. And Walker Kessler, like that's another one too. If he gets paid now, that's probably a good Duren barometer. Walker's definitely produced more in terms of defense there, but he hasn't played as much as Duren as well. So, and then Daniel's another one too. I'm like, man, you would think Atlanta would want to lock him up. If anybody, there's like a sign and trade for the Pistons here. And I mean, Mason Daniels would be a pretty good one to swap out. But yeah, a lot of interesting names in this restricted free agent class in particular. Honestly, to me too, I'm like, man, all the way down to Max Christie, maybe not Akbaji, but all those other guys, I'm like, I could see a world where they get 20 million, or they should be getting like 20 million per season on offer sheet from somebody, because all those guys either have really good potential or like a Sohan, like super versatile and like a really good role player on just about any team.
I wonder if this just becomes like the new trend where before restricted free agency was more rare where teams didn't take players there. But I wonder if people are like, because the other thing is for these rookie extensions, some rookie players have gotten extensions where it's like, is that guy really worth that money? Like you look at like Jordan Poole and stuff, and it's like teams are like realizing like, yeah, all these guys with the way the cap is, we can't give them this much money and then field a successful team. I wonder
Yeah,
if
but
the
I think those teams, sorry to cut you off, always win the title. Kuzma was one of them. Poole is the other. I think that's probably the um connection. I'm sure there's other ones. This is something we should look back at next time because it is a good one. But those are the ones I'm thinking of in particular. I'm like, yeah, those guys got paid, but it was after they won the title. Which everybody always says the same thing of like, you have to do it. You can't just let them go.
yeah, because I'm just wondering if we're going to see more and more guys going into restricted free agency just because teams are like, oh, this is the best way for us to play it because teams don't usually have as much cap space anymore. And if it is one team, typically they're rebuilding and they're not going to pay one guy X amount of money to be on their team. So it's like, we'll see.
Yeah, and especially next season, off season, when LeBron and KD are probably going to be out of the open market. Like, good luck being a free agent, restricted or otherwise, because nobody's probably going to be paying that much attention to you, man.
Yep.
All right, Andy, those are vast tonight, vast things, but we'll dive more into especially the Ivy stats. I'll come back looking at, again, player comps and things like that a little bit like I did with Duren. I'm pretty much done with Duren analysis. Like, this is it. Like, he either has to drastically improve or, he's just a guy that is awesome, hulked up and dunks everything, but really, really kills the defense. So it is what it is. Andy, let everybody know where they can find you before we get out of here.
You can find me on Twitter at D_D_Pistons_fan.
Looking forward to anything the rest of the summer. School's about to start in 10 days, I believe, here for us in Arizona. I don't know how long it takes in Michigan.
Oh, we have a few more weeks left, but this weekend I'm taking the kids. They are cross country runners, and their team has a camp where they go away for the weekend. I'm a chaperone, so I'm going with them, and they're gonna run on the sand dunes and stuff, and
Oh,
do
cool.
some
Yeah.
team building. So that'll be a good time.
Build out those calves. If you ever can, you should make it out to Albuquerque. Quick story here. I grew up right next to this place called the Albuquerque Academy, which is like a private school. It's pretty big acreage, but they have a gigantic path around it. And I lived right next to it. And my mom was pretty militant about my brother and I like running. There would always be Olympic athletes training there. Kenya, South Korea, or whatever. Like so many people come to run in Albuquerque because it's higher than Denver. So any runners out there, if you want to get an advantage and go train in Albuquerque because a lot of the best do it.
Very interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, my brother and I still joke about this where my mom yelled at him because she was like, "A girl passed you," and we're like, "That's one of the ladies on the Korean Olympic team, mom. You out of your mind." That's my mom in a nutshell.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it will be a story that will forever live in our minds. So yeah, thanks so much for listening to us. We'll catch you next time. We're gonna